Hello and welcome back to the Holistically Awakened podcast, your one-stop destination for all things health and a kick-ass life. I'm Laurence, a certified nutritional practitioner and health coach, and your host of the Holistically Awakened podcast. This is your show to learn from me and inspiring experts on how to up-level in all aspects of your life, including health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, and business, so you can live your very best life as your highest potential. No BS policy. This podcast is about awakening to the truth and talking about what really needs to happen to make your life what you want it to be, whatever that may look like. Johannah Bogart is on the podcast today, and she is here to free you from people pleasing. She's a certified coach who runs meditation retreats and a signature group coaching program for recovering people pleasers. She left her job as an advocate counselor in New York to solo travel for 2 years. Spending so much time alone allowed her to shed everyone else's expectations and come into who she truly is, and she wants every woman to experience this level of freedom. Welcome, Johannah, onto the podcast. I am so excited for this topic discussion chat today because we're going to be talking all about people pleasing, and I've never spoken about this on the podcast before, and I know so many women, but also men out there really struggle with this. So I'm super excited for this, and I'm so grateful that you're on today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
All right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of people pleasing, I always like to ask my guests, where did you start? Because most of the time we coach and help others with things that we've struggled with. So I'm guessing you were a people pleaser before?
Oh, yes, and I still am.
Yeah, we all are to a certain degree, right?
Yeah. So I guess I would honestly say I was born into a world of people pleasing, but it really became clear for me that I struggled in high school, which I think is when it happens for a lot of people. I had been homeschooled my whole life until high school, and then decided to go to public school. And that shift was really radical for me. And my immediate thought was, I have to fit in. I have to belong. And so people pleasing is when you betray yourself to gain approval, to gain belonging in a group. And that's exactly what I realized or thought I needed to do in public school. And I became really obsessive about clothing specifically. So everyone who's in quarantine right now knows, like, if you're at home, working at home, you're just wearing the same outfits every day. And that's essentially what homeschool is. You're just wearing the same stuff all the time. And then you have your cool clothes that you wear when you go out. But when I went to public school, people always looked good every day. They got up at like 5:30 a.m., did their hair, did makeup, and I really fixated on, if I can look the part, if I can look good, if I can wear the right clothes, I'll gain approval and belonging. And so that's how my people pleasing took shape, and how I thought that I had to hustle for love and hustle for approval. And that escalated, that emphasis on clothing and appearance escalated to the point that when I was living in New York, when I was like 25, I went to therapy and told my therapist, like, I'm changing my outfit 7 times a day. I feel compulsive. This doesn't feel normal. I would obsess. I wouldn't go to parties because I didn't think I had something that would really gain me a ticket into the group that would be perfect enough for the group. And that was my, dark fall into hustling for love, really, was through clothing.
Wow. And I think we can all relate to this to some degree, but especially for you. I mean, I've never been homeschooled, but for me as well, it was like so much pressure, especially in high school. And like, we have to look cute and all of that and have like the latest fashion brands or whatever it is. But for you having to go from that jump of like homeschooling to, was it high school that you
Yeah,
went
it
to?
was
High
high
school.
school.
Yeah, so it's even worse because I think all of us have not so great memories of high school where it's like you're just trying to
Yes.
fit in, right? So that must have been so much more pronounced for you, so I can't even imagine. So before we dive into it a little bit deeper, I'd love for you to kind of let us kind of understand what is people pleasing exactly, because maybe we know what it is, maybe we're not sure, but what exactly is people pleasing?
Yes. So there's so many ways to define it. The way I define it is that it's when you betray yourself to get the approval from others. So when you betray yourself to get something, and honestly, it's manipulation to get love, to get approval, to get a sense of belonging. That's people pleasing. And I want to say it's not, people pleasing is not a bad thing. Like, it is a survival skill that has allowed many of us to survive in oppressive societies and oppressive homes. If you grew up queer in a family that was homophobic, it looks on the outside like you're betraying yourself if you're pretending to be heterosexual, when in reality you're protecting yourself. And I support you doing that, and people pleasing is helping you do that. It's helping you stay safe when you're in an unsafe situation. We just take that skill and we over apply it, and we actually prevent the opportunity to be truly seen or to truly connect to others.
And I love how you mentioned that, because it is definitely a survival mechanism. Because when you think about it, thousands of years ago, when we were like cavemen, if we were rejected from the tribe, then we basically died, right? So
Yes.
now it's kind of like our brain thinks we're going to die, but we won't. So it's like we've
Yeah.
evolved, but our brain is still like, we have this primal part of the brain which needs to belong to a tribe. So that is also something that's really important to understand how our brain works, because then we can be like, oh, am I actually going to die? No, I'm not. It's
Yes,
fine.
it's just intentionality. Like, once you know, you can choose. And then you're like, I'm protecting myself, not betraying myself.
All about consciousness, conscious
Yes.
awareness. And so, do you see that it affects one or specific demographics more than others? Like maybe women more than men, or what have you noticed?
That's a great question. I see it across all genders. I would say that I actually had a friend ask me the other day, do you think this is like a women's issue? And at this point, what I'm seeing is that it's an issue for people who are oppressed.
Mm.
So, yes, that's women, but that's also non binary people, trans people. That's white people experience it in one way, but it's a very specific way. So, how a white woman experiences people pleasing will be very different from how a Black woman in the US, for example, experiences it. So oppression forces you to change yourself to fit in. And the way you have to change yourself can look really different. Like, how a man might add swagger is different than how a woman might go into being super nice and super likable. So it really depends. It'll look different, but yeah, it's available to anyone who doesn't feel safe in society.
That totally makes sense. And so we were talking about before we started the episode, about talking about the 9 archetypes of people pleaser. I had no idea there were archetypes, so I'd love for you to dive into those.
Yeah, okay. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be fun. So there's 9, and I'll just say before I get started, you can be like 3, 4 of these. So some people are like, okay, why am I all 9? And that's just because you're one at work, you're one with your partner, you might be a different one when you're home and you sort of get your like childhood dynamic going with your parents. So don't stress too much if you see yourself in multiple types. I'll just start. The first one is the perfectionist. So if I look good, say the right thing, and never fail, everyone will like me. That's the perfectionist. That this is obviously a big one in Western society, the pressure to be perfect. And what's beautiful, the superpower of the perfectionist is seeming flawless, like killing it at work, killing it in relationships, looking good. There's a lot of pros to this quality in you, but watch out for the fact that people love the idea of you. So when you create this veneer, you're essentially only letting people see the Instagrammable side of you instead of who you truly are. So your desire to please others, you're actually forfeiting true connection. With all these types, that's true. But for you, you do it through trying to seem perfect. So that's the first one. The second is the peacemaker. I avoid conflict at all costs. I will pretend to agree if it eases the tension in the room. So the superpower for the peacemaker is empathizing with others, of course, knowing how other people feel, being agreeable, being able to go along with that. But you need to watch out for confusing conflict with a loss of love, because peacemakers don't understand that it's possible to be loving and loved and connected and to disagree. So conflict doesn't create disconnection. So peacemakers actually force others to people please with them because they're so scared of disagreement. Everyone has to pretend to agree all the time in that dynamic. So the easy one, this is the third one. I don't let myself have problems. You tell me your problems, I'll take care of my own. Your superpower is being clearly very easy to be around. You keep all your problems hidden because you think they're burdens. So you just try to be as easy as possible. But watch out for the fact that you're isolating yourself from true connection because no one knows what you're going through. So I did this at the beginning of the pandemic. My friends were really stressed about quarantine. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the easy one. I'm not going to add to the burden by telling them my stresses and my fears. But it created disconnection because my friends couldn't be there for me the way I was there for them. And they started to feel like, what's with you? You're being kind of distant. So we think we're protecting our friends from our problems, but we're actually preventing them from supporting us. So the fourth person, the fourth archetype is the entertainer. It's my job to be fun-loving and easygoing so that everyone can be happy around me. If you're a middle child, this is probably you, because middle children are great at smoothing everything over and being fun and entertaining, and they light up the room. That's their superpower. But watch out for the anxiety that comes from the emotions you're suppressing. So you've convinced yourself that you're a positive vibes only person, but that's impossible. So there's a lot of emotions under there that you're pushing down, which creates inner conflict. Okay, and the next one is the good friend. I'm there for you no matter what. I'll always show up, ready to listen and agree with you. So your superpower is making people feel heard. You're supportive, you always answer the phone, you always show up for people. But watch out for performing friendship instead of actually being yourself around your friend. So you don't actually, in friendships, we are not always in the mood to hear about our friend's bad day at work. And it's okay to say, I don't have energy for that today. Can we just chill at the beach? Or do you want to just watch TV because I don't feel like talking? But when we've placed this burden on yourself, I have to be there for everybody because that's what gives me value. That's what makes them like me. We're not actually able to be ourselves, and that prevents true depth and connection in the relationship. Okay, this next one is one of my favorites, the warrior. The warrior says, you are vulnerable and it is my duty to protect you against the world. I'll be strong for you. So your superpower is making others feel safe. This does not look like a people pleaser on the surface, but watch out for making others rely on you for safety when they are capable of standing up for themselves. So this can be an enmeshment dynamic, a parent-child dynamic, where you find your value in the relationship by protecting and doing everything for others, by making yourself needed by others. And you're actually preventing people from being independent and from discovering their own strengths, but you think you have to be their crutch in order to be valued by them. Okay, 3 more. These are the final 3. The martyr, which I gotta change the name because I'm not loving the judgment in that name. The martyr, I can't take care of my own needs until I make sure everybody else has what they want. Your superpower is endurance. So the martyr can, go hours without eating, can go on a hike without water, can say, don't worry about it. I don't need to use the restroom. I can hold it. They're just like, you don't have to worry about me. I can handle it. I'll take on the pain. but watch out for making other people feel guilty about meeting their own needs as they see you neglecting your own. So I went on a hike with a friend once. She had a splitting migraine, but she refused to ride a horse that the guides had actually brought in case we needed help. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she's not getting on the horse, I can't get on the horse. So I was being the perfectionist, like I have to follow those standards of perfection. I have to do this hike. And she was in the martyr role. I have to endure even though I'm exhausted. And it prevented both of us from being who we actually were in that moment and from having the hike experience either of us were actually in the mood for. So 2 more. The caretaker. Your wants and needs are my first priority. I'll betray myself to make sure your desires are met. So this is like the classic mother archetype, like 1950s mom. Your superpower is knowing what people need, but watch out for the resentment that builds as you deprive yourself to nourish others. So putting everyone else first feels good for a while, but eventually you'll be like, hey, everyone, what about me? I give and give and give. And that creates a toxic cycle, a toxic connection. And here's the very last one. It's another one of my favorites because this is the person who doesn't think they're a people pleaser, the rebel. The rebel says, I don't want to please you. I want to reject you first so that you can't hurt me. So the superpower there is, of course, seeming very cool, very aloof and strong and confident, but watch out for trying to push people away because that can make you just as tied to their opinion as if you were pulling people towards you. So people pleasing is very manipulative and reactionary. We're trying to impact how other people see us. And the rebel doesn't want to risk rejection, so they try to push people away to negatively impact how they see us so that they don't ever get the opportunity to reject us in the first place. And that's it. Those are all 9.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, I could like relate with like so many of them, more with some than others. And obviously, as you mentioned, like they can change in regards to like what's happening. So my question is, these are all kind of, they're all a little bit, obviously they're different, but they're all coming from the same place, right? Like there's gonna be a core wound or like an issue that's driving these. Is that correct?
Totally.
And so what is the real issue here?
So the underlying issue is believing that you have to fill a specific role or provide a specific value in order to be worthy of love and belonging.
Mm.
So you have to change yourself to be loved. You're not good enough as you are.
Yeah, so it's usually stemming down to maybe beliefs that were formed when you were little, like I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, like that type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about those underlying beliefs, as you know, as a coach.
100%. And so that's where it kind of takes some digging and looking into like, where is this coming from with a certain person, and then kind of like extracting that. Is that what you do with your coaching?
Absolutely. Yeah. We always start by noticing the beliefs, the underlying beliefs. And it there's usually 4 underlying people pleasing beliefs actually. That we explore together. Like I can't afford to rock the boat. I have to earn love. I don't get it freely. And we notice how these beliefs are playing out in the person's life. And then I think one of the main questions I like to ask people is, what would you need to believe in order to show up as you are? Or what would you need to believe to set a boundary in this relationship, and starting to create new beliefs based on what people would have to believe in order to be who they truly are.
And so if somebody's not working with a coach, obviously if you're dealing with this, Johannah would be a great person to talk to. But like if somebody is dealing with people pleasing, like where do we start?
Good question.
Is there even an answer to that?
I would start I would start by noticing the moments throughout the day when you try to mind read. So when you're like, oh, he's probably hungry. I'm going to see if he's hungry. I'm going to tell him I have chips and salsa. Or you're on the beach and you're like, oh my gosh, they think I look stupid because I brought a hoodie and it's so hot outside. So whatever thoughts come up that you're projecting onto other people when you mind read, that is a beautiful red flag that you're people pleasing. And what we usually do when we're in people pleasing mode is actually respond to that red flag. Like, oh, I thought that, it must be true. Now I have to do something about it in order to be loved. When in reality, you can stop that thought in its tracks and say, so this is the practice you would do. I'm having this thought. What do I think? I think he's hungry. Am I hungry? You just take whatever thought it is and put it back on yourself. I think they think I look stupid with this hoodie on in hot weather. What do I think? I think I was cold when I left the house, and that's why I brought it. So you just bring it back to yourself over and over again and start to create this new neural pathway where you're actually the authority and expert, and nobody else gets the last word on you and your life.
I love that. And it comes back to conscious awareness. I think that's the first step with anything. It's like, because if you're not aware of it, then it's just like an automatic thing that you can't really control or change. But once you're aware of it, then it's like outside of yourself, right? So you can actually look at it and be like, do I really want to be doing that? Like, is that true? And
Yes.
questioning it is so powerful.
Oh, and it makes you, yes, the power is huge. And you don't realize how disempowering people pleasing is until you stop doing it. And you're just like, it's literally like, I imagine just becoming completely swole, like just suddenly you have muscles like dunk. You feel so much more powerful when you're actually asking yourself and checking in with yourself and doing you, and you don't have to explain anything to anyone.
And when we go through like the 9 archetypes, it's interesting because I think a lot of people might be surprised and think, oh, actually, I'm a people pleaser. And like they never thought they were, because these are all things that we all do, but we don't necessarily label ourselves as people pleasers, right? So you were talking about the red flags that let you know that you're people pleasing. One of them you said is mind reading. Are there other ones?
Ooh, yes. Okay. Mind reading. Yeah, there's 6 signs that you are people pleasing that I love to share with clients and that I use with myself all the time because I've got people pleasing deep within myself. So the first one is white lies. So yeah, everyone does this, like you were saying. When somebody's like, are you coming on Friday? And you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot come. Instead of saying that, you're like, yeah, let me text you. I'm going to text you about it, because you just cannot bear to disappoint that person to their face in that moment. You're like, I'll text them later and cancel. There's no way I'm going. So that's a white lie. And that's a sign that you're hiding the truth in order to gain approval, instead of showing up as you truly are and letting people take you as you truly are. So that's the first one. The second is conflict avoidance. So conflict avoidance, it pretty much is self-explanatory, but it's remarkable how often we say, it's fine, I don't mind, or I'm good either way, or no problem, don't mind me. When in fact, the truth is it's not fine, or you're actually not good either way. You're really secretly hoping they say, let's head out, or whatever it is. So practicing being kind of difficult, what you perceive as difficult, and letting people create more space in the world for you, instead of thinking you have to constantly like chip away at your preferences to fit everybody.
So that's like the peacemaker, right?
Totally. And this is a really good one actually for first dates, because people pleasers can attract controlling people. So on a first date, you're going out with someone, they say, let's get sushi. If you're just like, I'm not into sushi, that can feel like conflict as a people pleaser. But what you're actually doing is teaching this person, like, I say what I want, and then you get to find out if they can handle that. So you're showing up as your full self and inviting someone else to embrace you that way, just simply by saying no.
And you see that in so many like couples relationships, even like movies, where the person you know, the first date, whether it's food or they did something and the person was like, oh, actually, yeah, I love doing that. And then like a year later, they're like, I've always hated doing that, but I never told you because I didn't want to like seem whatever on the first date, right? Like I see that, I
Yes.
hear about that all the time.
Oh my gosh. I've been with my partner 4 years. On our second date, he made steak, I made broccoli. We ate it. And a month later, I was like, I don't eat meat. And he was like, I don't eat broccoli. And we were like, all right.
Such a prime example.
Like, well, we
Okay.
survived.
Well, I mean, it could have been longer, right? So,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could have eaten a lot more steak.
yeah.
So then there's mind reading, which we talked about. And then the next one is seeking permission. I love this one. I'm sure you notice this too. People coming to you wanting advice, but they're really wanting permission. So I'll like survey my friends. Do you think I should get this dress? Should I get it? Should I get it? But somewhere deep inside, I know that I'm really hoping they all say, yes, get it. When I was deciding whether or not to go to grad school, I kept being like, but it's a lot of money, right? But it's far away, right? Hoping someone would say, you don't have to go. I was really seeking permission, but I framed it as seeking advice. So notice when you go to somebody who's not an expert and you're treating them like an expert, you're probably just wanting support from a friend, but you're acting like you want advice.
Mm.
And then the next one is over explaining. So I can't come because, sorry, I'm underdressed. I'm coming from the office, since, you create this laundry list of reasons instead of just letting your actions speak for themselves. Like, no, I can't come, or yeah, I'm underdressed. So this really takes courage, because it's so tempting to feel like we have to justify everything, especially if we're mind reading and think people are judging us. So it takes some practice to just say it and let it hang there.
Oh my goodness. I'm just like laughing to myself because I'm like, I can see myself in so many of these. It's like, but I definitely am working through like not needing approval. Like it's something I've been working on like pretty much every day for like the past few months. So I'm also just so excited for this episode because I'm just like, so many people can relate to this, including myself. So it's just so useful.
Yay!
But you were also talking about those communication styles of people pleasers. Is that another thing?
That is this. There's
That's this. Okay.
actually,
That's the same thing.
yeah, same thing.
Okay. Makes sense. So,
And there's one more, which is
oh, sorry, I
projection.
totally interrupted you. I can't count anymore. So, what's the last one?
Projection.
Projection. Okay.
So projection is actually, it's very similar to mind reading. Mind reading is just like thinking you know what everyone else is thinking, but projection is putting your own needs, usually biological needs, onto others. So are you hungry? Are you mad? You seem like you're getting tired. When you're actually the one who's hungry and mad and tired, and like you need to go home, but you don't feel like you have the authority or right to make the calls based on your needs. So you have to get someone else to have those needs on your behalf.
Another very common one.
Yeah, they're so subtle, and it's so easy to couch them as being nice or polite that we don't realize that we're betraying ourselves.
So from all of these actions and these types, we obviously all are either people pleasing all the time or like sometimes, like once in a while, like it all happens. And so obviously you're talking about, being conscious and aware is really the first step, like questioning, like, is this true? Like, what are these beliefs? Where are they coming from? And so I think one of the big work that we have to do is just own our truth and actually know who we are and be okay with that. So how do we even get to that point? Because I think now, especially in the 21st century, especially for women, but I mean everybody nowadays, is we're really affected by social media and the news and beauty standards and magazines and all of these sorts of things. And it's just in this constant state in like marketing, which basically tells us like we're never good enough. We always need something else. We need to buy something else. We need to look this way, blah, blah, blah. And it can just be like we're bombarded every single day by messages telling us that we're not enough as we are. So how do we even like navigate that?
Oh, yes. Yes. So I like to think of this as chopsticks. So you need two things. And if you only have one, you can't pick up the sushi roll. So you need both sticks, both things. And this is loving kindness and presence. So you have to be so nice to yourself. You have to, and this is something really hard for people pleasers. We are hard on ourselves and we don't even realize it. And we think that pushing and hustling and criticizing is what will chip us away and sculpt us into who we're supposed to be, when we really just need self-love, because the more love we can give ourselves, the less we're going to be craving it and begging for it from other people and fearing the loss of it from other people. So loving kindness is the first chopstick, and that is when you are on the phone with someone and say, oh no, I don't mind at all, totally cool, and then you hang up and you're like, I did mind, why am I such a people pleaser? Then you say to yourself, it's okay, baby, it's okay, it's okay. Like this has helped you survive for so long. I'm putting my hand on my heart as I say this because I've done it so many times, putting my hand on my heart or on my cheek, and I just say, I love you, thank you for protecting me, it's okay. So being extremely kind and loving towards yourself, that's the first chopstick. The other one is presence, because if we're just loving, we'll fall into denial. Like, it's not that big of a deal, you're fine, you didn't mean to. And presence actually keeps us honest with ourselves. Like, okay, let's sit with the discomfort and the shame there, and that shame is reminding you of your childhood and being taught XYZ, or okay, let's just sit with this discomfort as it is right now, instead of texting a friend and asking her to reassure us that we're normal or that we're valuable or that she didn't take it personally, whatever we said. So loving, being super loving towards ourselves and being really present and really honest with our actions. That those are the two most important pieces that will keep you moving forward as you dismantle people pleasing within yourself.
I love those. And I think self love is something that's just a word that's thrown around a lot. And I definitely totally agree. But I also think that for a lot of people, it's almost like this huge quantum jump between like, I hate myself towards like, I need to love myself now. You know what I mean? So it's almost like
Yes.
unrealistic for a lot of people. So have you worked with people who literally are in that, I guess, that state where they don't like themselves, maybe they hate themselves, they don't like their bodies, they think everything's wrong with them, but they do want to become better, but it's almost like you need to take baby steps towards self-love?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yes. And we can even have days where, like, yeah, self love, I've got that. And then the next day, we don't have it at all and we feel like frauds. Like, why am I
Mm.
acting like I love myself when I really don't? And yeah, there's such a movement on Instagram. So thank you for saying that, because it can feel really like, what's wrong with me that I can't love myself like that? So what I would say is to start with equanimity. And equanimity is a state of mind, a quality of mind where you accept reality as it is. And so there's actually some phrases you can use that I turn into meditations for the women I work with. So, for example, you could say to yourself, I am as I am. May I accept myself just as I am. Or if you're really struggling, I am as I am. May I one day have the possibility of accepting myself just as I am.
Mm.
And you can even take it away from yourself. So if that's hard, you can say, I feel how I feel. May I accept how I feel? Because a lot of what happens is meta emotions cause us to spiral. So a meta emotion, you probably know this, it's a feeling about a feeling. So I I hate myself. And then, God, what is wrong with me? Why do I hate myself? Why can't I love myself? So not only do we have the feeling, now we're spiraling and hating ourselves more for hating ourselves. We have shame about our shame. We get anxious about our anger. So equanimity, I feel how I feel. It actually allows us to just be with what's happening instead of creating stories and making it bigger than it is. And when we can do that, when we can just start to be comfortable with like accepting things as they are, that's the exact opposite of people pleasing, which is like, how can I take this and turn it into something other people will like, other people will accept? It's like, I'm just going to be with this exactly as it is the first step towards self-love, self-compassion, all of that healing good stuff.
So good. I love that. I really loved how you answered that, because it's just about acceptance, really, to start out with. At least it's just being like, okay, this is what's happening. Because a lot of the time when we see even these coping mechanisms, which are, very common with people pleasers, like whether it be alcohol or binging or emotional eating or whatever it is, and it's just trying to get away from this feeling that we don't want to feel. And again, the people pleasing is because we don't want to feel this feeling, and so it's always avoiding these feelings. But then when we actually just accept them, then it's like you're basically just the sky and the clouds are going past, and you're like, oh, I'm not the cloud, I'm the sky. So then it's like, okay, I can feel this emotion, this feeling, and just let it pass, instead of trying to resist it and run away from it. But it just keeps running after you, right? So it like never goes away, and then it becomes even bigger because you're resisting it. So I love that you talked about acceptance, because that's really the only way to actually let something pass. It's by just letting it pass, right?
Yes. And so much of people pleasing is the belief that you can't handle anything. You can't handle rejection. You can't handle a loss of love or not belonging. And when you say, I accept, you're saying, I can handle this. Like, I'm letting this be what it is. I'm letting this in. And being able to handle things makes you like a superhuman, essentially.
And I mean, the more that's like, I think a lot of people, especially people pleasers, are always wondering, like, how can I be more confident? But I had definitely dealt with this like extremely a few years ago, where it was just like, how can I be confident? But I'm always trying to people please. But at the end of the day, it's really when you do take action that you become confident, because then you're like, oh, there's a little win, and actually I'm capable of that, and actually I'm strong, and I'm whatever. And then you actually have the proof there. And that's really the only way to build confidence.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's like the exact opposite of faking it till you make it. And I
Mm.
love that you said that, because that just kills me, that phrase.
100%. So I honestly love this conversation so much. I think it's going to benefit so many women. And obviously, I would love for everybody to connect with you, because I think what you're sharing with the world is so important. And I'd love for you to kind of let us know where we find you, where you're hanging out, even if, somebody wants to work with you, what they can do to get in contact with you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Johannah Bogart Coach. Um, I'm my name is Johannah Bogart.
I'll put the
And
link in the show notes.
thank you. That's where you can find the archetypes and everything I'm doing. I do group coaching for recovering people pleasers and one-on-one coaching. And I'm also on TikTok, Johannah Bogart. And that's where you can find lots of little quizzes you can do with yourself to figure out if you're a people pleaser and what kind of people pleaser you are. And all the archetypes are also on my website, johannahbogart.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And I love this conversation so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved it. And as usual, if you do enjoy the episode, the podcast, please share, tag me on Instagram. And I always appreciate any rating or review on iTunes. It helps me reach more people, spread the message. Also a reminder that if you are looking for more support, you want to follow Johannah, highly recommend following her on her Instagram and her social media. All of the links will be in the show notes. as well as her group coaching program actually has just opened recently. So you can check that out on her website, johannahbogart.com. The link is also in the show notes. And a reminder that it's the last week that you can sign up for the Glow Up, which is our 6-week mini program inside of the Housebound Emporium, which is basically looking at tangible action steps on how to get your energy levels back, sleeping, stress management, exercise, nutrition, how to basically get back on track in a way that is holistic and that supports your body in a non-restrictive way. So that is currently going on. It's the last week to join us if you want to gain access this week. I'll put a little link to the sneak peek of the challenge as well as our program, but I'd love to have you if you're interested in turning your health around in a holistic way that uses nutrition, mindset, and lifestyle changes. So we can chat more if you're interested. Shoot me a message on Instagram or email me at info@laurencedanez.com. All the links are in the show notes. And thank you so much again for tuning in. Can't wait for next week.